Before the final concert of my global tour, I was alerted to a deduction of 5 million yuan from my bank account. Upon reviewing the transaction, I discovered that my fiancée, Sophia, had purchased the Steinway Black Diamond piano I had custom ordered 6 months prior. Strangely, just moments before my performance, that very piano was seen in front of Sophia's student. I raised an eyebrow but continued my performance as though nothing was wrong. After the show, I assembled all the students and casually placed my arm around Sophia. A biased teacher isn't an effective educator. What Ethan has, the other students deserve as well. That night, Sophia maxed out her bank card, and in front of everyone, I declared the termination of our engagement. As the most renowned pianist, I had never been short of money or attention from women. Before the final show of my piano tour, I had arranged for several of my students to take the stage. I had mentored them for many years, and now that I had achieved fame, it was their time to shine. Listening to the performances by my proud disciples filled me with immense pride. "Ethan, you seem to be in great spirits today." Hearing praise from the organizer made me smile genuinely. The thought of playing the Steinway Black Diamond piano, which I had eagerly awaited for over half a year, brought me immense joy. Discovering that Sophia had secretly purchased it, even using my card, felt like a heartfelt surprise. I tapped my fingers in rhythm with the piano, eagerly anticipating the next piece. Suddenly, the judge's expressions changed. I looked up to see Daniel, who shouldn't have been on stage, passionately playing the very piano I had been waiting for. I masked my smile and fixed my gaze on Sophia in the audience, her face alight with excitement. Everything became clear. The judges maintained their polite expressions. One awkwardly remarked, "This young man's technique seems a bit raw, but the piano he's playing is exceptional." A Steinway Black Diamond. Only a master-level pianist would own one. He's still young, but with continued family support, he might excel in the future. However, reaching Ethan's level will take some time. These compliments did nothing to lift my spirits. Instead, they heightened my discomfort. It felt like every word mocked the standard I'd set for my students. It wasn't about family background, but genuine talent. Here was Daniel confidently taking the stage with such an expensive piano, signaling he had come through the back door. This was Sophia's doing. Yet it was also predictable. Perhaps it was my mistake to let her make decisions for the final concert. "Ladies and gentlemen, please excuse me. Since it's the last performance of the tour, my students were eager to perform, so I decided to let them take the stage," I explained. My assistant, sensing the situation, quickly called up other students close to Daniel's level to perform as well. This made sense and prevented any accusations of favoritism. The other students wouldn't feel excluded. When it was finally my turn to perform, Sophia hurried over to find me. She must have thought of another explanation, but why should I listen? She wouldn't change. I walked past her indifferently and took the stage to perform. Unlike something I had eagerly anticipated but was taken away by someone else, I preferred things that were genuinely mine. At the most prestigious concert, I remained the confident, internationally acclaimed pianist Ethan. After the performance, Sophia chased after me. "Ethan, please let me explain." The sound of her high heels echoed, drawing several people's attention. I stopped, turned around, and raised an eyebrow at her. Sophia's words caught in her throat. After a long pause, she finally said, "I saw how hard Daniel was practicing, and I just wanted to give him a chance to perform." I didn't get angry. Instead, I smiled, my lips curling upward. Sophia tentatively gauged my mood and, seeing that I wasn't upset, relaxed a bit. She wrapped her arm around mine and spoke softly. "When I see him, I can't help but think of you when you were younger. I'm also his teacher's wife, and I want to help him too." I returned her warm smile. "I appreciate your good intentions, but a biased teacher's wife isn't an effective educator. What Daniel has, the other students deserve as well." With a single glance, the 13 students who had come to watch the tour gathered around. "That Black Diamond piano is a custom order from the master. It's priceless and unavailable on the market. However, there's another model worth 3 million yuan, and there are still 12 left. Gifts are a gesture of the heart, and I'm sure lacking a million or two won't be an issue. My assistant stood respectfully with the POS machine in front of Sophia. I placed my arm around her waist, lifted my chin, and said proudly, "What are you waiting for? Don't you think you should thank your teacher's wife for the gift? It's well known that learning the piano is expensive." Most of my students came from wealthy backgrounds. 2 had joined purely through talent and had earned substantial amounts from their own performances over the years. So a 3 million win piano wasn't extravagant for them, but Sophia's wallet would certainly take a hit. It wasn't that no one had considered this. After a moment of awkward silence, everyone seemed to reach an unspoken agreement and didn't say another word. They simply thanked Sophia respectfully. Her smile froze on her face. I tightened my grip around her waist and whispered in her ear, "What's the matter? Do you really want people to think you're being biased?" She exhaled sharply, "Of course not," and handed over her card. Outwardly, she seemed unconcerned, but her knuckles turning white as she gripped the card indicated otherwise. After the payment was processed, I let out a genuine laugh. Daniel, standing among the crowd, wore a complicated expression, trying his best to remain inconspicuous. I looked at him softly and spoke. "Among all my students, you've been with me the longest, but your ability is the weakest. Your teacher's wife put in so much effort to get you the most valuable piano. If you don't work harder, wouldn't that be a waste of her good intentions?" Daniel lowered his gaze, his voice tinged with a barely audible crack. "I'll work harder." Sophia's eyes filled with pity, nearly spilling over. I wasn't interested in watching this tragic little drama unfold, so I walked off. Many people were discussing the performance. Daniel, whose playing was clearly not up to par with the other students, became the focus of everyone's conversation. "Who is this Daniel? One bad apple can spoil the whole bunch. Does he really think he belongs here? Can someone like him join a world-class tour through the back door? Look at that piano. This guy isn't a simple player. Even Ethan doesn't make such a show of it. He really doesn't know his place." Daniel left the venue with red eyes and a disheveled demeanor. "Ethan, don't you think this is a bit too much?" Sophia called me later that night, angry and hurt. I sneered in response. What did I do? She was speechless. The harsh words weren't my doing. They were the result of her thoughtless actions. I can overlook it when someone is undeserving of their position, but others won't be as forgiving. Realizing she was just being unreasonable, Sophia shifted her tone. "All right, I should have thought this through. You've made your point. Let's consider this issue resolved." She softened her approach, trying to smooth things over. I neither agreed nor disagreed. After a brief pause, she added, "How about tomorrow? Will you come with me to a reunion? Do you have time?" I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. "Send me the address. We were getting engaged in a week. As she said, I'd already given her a warning. Such a small matter wouldn't make me angry enough to cancel the engagement. As long as she knew her place and fulfilled her duties as my fiancé, I wouldn't create unnecessary trouble or make her uncomfortable." After hanging up, I didn't wait for her response. I could try to let it go, but she insisted on making things difficult for herself. Before the reunion, she eagerly came to pick me up from the office. Everyone at the reunion is an old classmate of mine. When we're married, we'll inevitably be in contact with them. So I thought we should get to know each other first. I accepted, treating it as just a social obligation. I thought she'd at least put some effort into making a good impression on me and her friends, given it was our first meeting. But once again, I overestimated her upbringing. As soon as we entered the private room, Sophia's phone rang. Without even greeting anyone and looking at the caller ID, she hesitated for 2 seconds before saying, "I'll take this call," and left the room without another word, leaving me alone with a group of strangers. I wasn't embarrassed, but couldn't suppress a rising sense of distaste for her. The next comment from one of her classmates completely ignited my dislike. "It's been a few days, and Sophia's turned into such a busy woman. What's so important that she can even ditch her little lover?" A man casually draped his arm over my shoulder. "Hey, you're Daniel, right? I've seen your picture on Sophia's social media. You look pretty well behaved in photos, but why do you look so aloof in real life? Are you shy? I could tell from the way everyone in the room exchanged knowing glances that Sophia hadn't even bothered to introduce me properly to her friends before the reunion. I curved my lips into a smile and said, "Nice to meet you. I'm Sophia's fiancé, Ethan." The room fell silent instantly. The same classmate who had casually draped his arm around me froze, his smile awkwardly plastered on his face. Fortunately, Sophia returned just in time to break the tension. Many people in the room turned to her with pleading eyes, but she was too distracted to notice. Sophia looked troubled as she pursed her lips and said, "Ethan, Daniel was really upset by what happened yesterday. He's been in the practice room all night." I glanced at her calmly, wanting to give her one last chance. "And what does that have to do with you?" Her last trace of guilt disappeared and she frowned at me. "Ethan, I'm his teacher's wife, and you're his teacher. If you don't care about your student, can't I, as his teacher's wife, at least show some concern? They say Daniel practiced the piano all night and his fingers were bleeding. He's been trying so hard. Can't you stop putting so much pressure on him?" Sophia reprimanded me and sighed. In the end, he can only listen to me now. "I'll go back to check on him. Please wait for me here." Without hesitation, she left. The other classmates had figured out what was going on. They soon realized it was all a misunderstanding. "I must have had bad judgment to mistake you, Ethan. I'll drink this one for the mistake. By the way, when's the wedding date for you two?" "Hey, Ethan." I had no reason to stay any longer. Sophia had used up her last chance with me. As I left, I called my friend. "Out tonight, let's celebrate the return to single life." After getting engaged to Sophia, I had dutifully acted as her fiancé. I refrained from doing anything that might make her suspicious, but my respect for her was met with her taking advantage. Since she couldn't meet those expectations, I wouldn't force it. I'd let her be. While drinking, my phone buzzed continuously with Sophia's messages. "Ethan, you actually just left. Do you know how much you made me lose face in front of my classmates? What's the meaning of not answering your phone? You're the one who hurt Daniel's pride first, and now you're throwing a tantrum with me. I was kind to Daniel because I thought he reminded me of you when you were in his position. Now that you've become famous, you've become so out of touch with ordinary people's struggles. If you don't reply by the end of today, I think there's no point in us getting married." I smirked and flipped the phone face down on the table, determined not to return her messages until I was sober. For the next few days, Sophia didn't send me any more messages. The day before our originally scheduled engagement ceremony, both families began preparing for the meeting. I could already tell that Sophia hadn't informed her parents about the broken engagement. It worked out well, though. Tomorrow, when both families were present, I could explain everything clearly. I'd drunk heavily with my friends these past few days and had enjoyed myself thoroughly. I returned to my apartment slightly tipsy, intending to freshen up and get some rest. But when I opened the door, the scene before me immediately sobered me up. The living room wasn't messy, despite having hired a cleaner to tidy up, but I could tell someone had been there. I held my breath as I surveyed the room. The towels and toiletries in the bathroom had been moved, and there were fingerprints on the living room piano. The bedsheets in the bedroom had been changed, and there were some stray hairs on the floor. Sophia's signature waves and Daniel's short brown hair were unmistakable. I smiled to myself. Some people were clearly trying to hide their actions, while others were leaving clues for me to find. How interesting. I looked at the used condom in the trash bin and dialed my assistant's number. "Call the police. Someone has illegally entered my apartment." The engagement ceremony wasn't particularly extravagant, but we did invite a few close relatives from both families. Sophia had arrived early. When she saw me, she flashed a smile and linked her arm with mine, trying to portray a picture-perfect couple. But seeing her feigned demeanor, I felt nothing but disdain. Her actions were like those of a clown, unworthy of attention. I pulled my arm away from hers and brushed off my clothes. Sophia froze on the spot, visibly awkward. My parents quickly noticed the tension and asked, "What's going on between you two? Did you have an argument? If there's any misunderstanding, you should clear it up now. You're about to get engaged after all." My mother walked over and comforted Sophia, patting her hand. Sophia seemed to find solace in my mother's words and spoke with a heartfelt expression. It's just a small misunderstanding, and he hasn't spoken to me for days. I thought at least he'd pretend to get along in front of the elders. I sneered coldly. What's there to pretend? Didn't you say you wanted to break up? Sophia's eyes reddened. I was just saying that in the heat of the moment. Both my parents and hers began to criticize me. You're the man. You should be the one to compromise. Is there anything that can't be solved? You can't always argue over such small things. You're adults now. You need to be responsible for your actions. I raised my hand to stop them. Of course, I understand all of that. So, Sophia, how about you explain to the parents what happened between you and my student, Daniel, at my place last night? And what about the condom in the trash? Care to explain that, Sophia? Did this really happen? Sophia's father immediately turned serious, his voice rising in anger. Sophia stood frozen, unable to process the situation. At first, my parents were also in shock. Ethan, you can't just say such things. Isn't there some misunderstanding? Sophia's a woman. She can't bear such slander from you. Sophia's mother stepped in front of her, a look of discontent in her voice. But from the beginning, I didn't show the slightest hint of joking. Ethan, I only bought him a piano. How could you slander me like this? Sophia finally regained her composure and charged at me, aiming to slap me. But my father stopped her in time. My mother's expression also hardened. What exactly is going on here? I know my son's character. If you hadn't done something out of line, he wouldn't be acting like this. Sophia took a deep breath and began to explain, Mom, Dad, it's not like he said. Daniel and I have a clean relationship. Nothing happened. The other night, we went to Ethan's apartment because we got our clothes dirty from a street cleaning truck, and we had nowhere else to go to change. Think about it. If there was really something going on between us, would we be so blatant about it? Sophia's face was full of grievance, her eyes already brimming with tears. Her parents rushed to wipe her tears away sympathetically. Ethan, back then, Sophia really liked you, and that's why the Johnson family chose to arrange this marriage with your family. We didn't expect you not to appreciate her. We must have misjudged you. Now that things have escalated like this, I think we should call off the engagement. Sophia's father frowned and said solemnly, I should be the one saying that, Sophia. We're calling off the engagement. My mother patted my hand to calm me down. Ethan, your father and I support every decision you make. But Sophia wasn't happy with this. As we turned to leave, she suddenly grabbed my hand. Ethan, why? You've condemned me without any proof. Do you know how this will destroy my reputation? If we're still getting engaged, you need to present solid proof of my infidelity first. Sophia said this with such certainty, her inner hurt and injustice spilling over. This made those around us sympathize with her. I smiled faintly. After all, the DNA test results wouldn't take much longer to arrive. Fine, let's wait until the evidence is out and I'll see how you explain this. Sophia's eyes flickered with a glimmer of hope, and she gritted her teeth at me. I'll see what proof you have. I'm not afraid of being wrongfully accused of something I didn't do. Before she left, she dropped a final bombshell. Ethan, I had already forgiven you for your emotional abuse and planned to cooperate with you in front of our parents at the engagement ceremony today, but I didn't expect you to pull this stunt. You've really disappointed me. If you still can't figure out where you went wrong, there's no way I can continue this engagement. Think it over. Her words made it sound like I was the one in the wrong, but I didn't want to get caught up in her verbal traps. Since last night, I had already made my decision. Sophia's countless transgressions had used up the last ounce of patience I had for her. So no matter what her attitude was, I had already given up on her. During the waiting period, I returned to the office to handle work. Now that the tour was over, there were still many affairs requiring my personal attention. Social gatherings followed one after another. After a few days, I was indeed feeling quite exhausted. As the last dinner party was nearing its end, my thoughts wandered elsewhere. I was considering where to go later to relax after successfully closing this deal. However, in the middle of dinner, the door to the private room suddenly swung open and an unexpected guest appeared. Teacher, please don't cancel the engagement with the teacher's wife. If I had known that was your apartment, I would never have gone there. Please, if you want to blame someone, punish me instead. The clients in the room looked at me with confused expressions. I picked up my wine glass and placed it gently on the table. Sorry, everyone, I have some personal matters to attend to. With that, I stood up and left the private room behind me. Daniel hesitantly nodded and bowed to the people inside, then followed me out. I lit a cigarette, trying hard to suppress the frustration rising within me. I had planned to settle the score with him later, but now he shamelessly came to confront me. Well, if that's what he wanted, I'd give him what he was asking for. Since you're so eager to admit your mistakes, I might as well acknowledge your efforts. Take your things and get out of my music room. From now on, I no longer have you as a student. Daniel's face turned pale and he collapsed onto the floor in disbelief. No, teacher, I finally made it in. You can punish me in other ways. You can even beat me up. I'm fine with that. But please, don't expel me, I sneered. I thought you were supposed to have some backbone, but I don't accept students with impure intentions. People like you will eventually ruin my reputation. Now get out. I lifted my foot to step away from his hand. I hadn't applied much force, yet he suddenly toppled backward, his head slamming hard against the floor. Daniel! Sophia's voice rang out from behind. She stared at me with wide, disbelieving eyes. I paused for 2 seconds before slowly retracting my foot. Ethan, I saw everything. Sophia rushed over to help Daniel up, urgently checking for injuries. How do you feel? Are you dizzy, Daniel? Tears streamed down his face as he grasped her hand. I'm sorry, teacher's wife. I just wanted to ask the teacher to forgive us. With teary eyes, he looked at me. Teacher, did this kick make you feel better? Can you reconcile with the teacher's wife now? Enough. Sophia gritted her teeth. What kind of skill is it for you to bully Daniel? Ethan, you've really changed. Don't forget, 10 years ago, your situation was almost identical to Daniel's. But now, with your power, you've become the perpetrator. Ethan, you can't just treat your students like this. She carefully helped Daniel, and when she looked at me, there was nothing but disgust in her eyes. I can't believe I was thinking about how to convince my parents to keep the engagement. I guess I was wrong again. Without hesitation, she supported Daniel and left. I stayed by the vent, smoking an entire pack of cigarettes. It wasn't the pain I felt, but rather Sophia's words that suddenly brought back memories from the past. She always thought she knew me only after I became famous, but that wasn't the case. Many years ago, when I was just a penniless, struggling young man, we were already classmates. Her sympathy and regret for my past were merely a glossed-over version, polished by the shine of my current success. Just like now, she still couldn't remember how I had secretly been in love with her for so many years. At that time, we were both attending the same prestigious high school, but my life underwent a complete transformation. The family business suddenly had its cash flow cut off, and within a month, it went bankrupt due to financial difficulties. I went from being the admired young heir of a wealthy family to hitting rock bottom. During that period, it felt like I experienced all the malice in the world. My once close friends suddenly turned on me, mocking me cruelly. Those who had once flattered me took off their fake masks, no longer bothering to hide their true intentions. My parents had nothing left. They started from scratch, working hard to pay off debts, but they didn't give up on helping me transfer schools. They had already paid my high school tuition in advance. I didn't give up on the piano either. Except for my study time, I worked relentlessly to earn money through part-time jobs. In my most confused and difficult moments, Sophia appeared in my life like a ray of light. She casually saw me eating dry bread before a piano lesson with someone else. After that, she always used the excuse of not liking breakfast to shove food my way. She didn't just help me materially. She gave my heart immense comfort. When I realized I had feelings for her, I discovered that the motivation behind my hard work was to be worthy of her. I wanted to stand on my own again, at a place where I could stand side by side with her. But the road ahead was filled with hardship and anxiety. I watched as Sophia changed boyfriends one after another. To her, I was just a barely noticeable presence, someone she offered occasional kindness to. Finally, I waited for her to break up again. I gathered all my courage and appeared before her in the suit that my family had custom made for my coming-of-age ceremony when I turned 18. I wanted to confess to her, but Sophia wore a puzzled expression on her face. She didn't even remember my full name. "Hey, what was your name again?" "Ethan. Why are you suddenly wearing this outfit? Did you borrow it to perform or something? What do you need me for?" She tilted her head, looking at me with a sweet smile. Embarrassment and humiliation flooded over me. I couldn't bear it any longer and ran away in a panic. At first, I thought she just didn't remember me. But later, I overheard a conversation she had with her friend. "Are you kidding? How could I not know what he's up to? From the first time he appeared in front of me, I knew this guy had a crush on me. Although he's not bad looking, there's no way I'd date a poor guy. People would laugh at me. He's just not presentable. I'll just play dumb, so he'll take on all the issues out of his own inferiority but still secretly adore me." I looked at the national piano competition trophy I just won and felt like a joke. From then on, I stopped appearing in front of Sophia. As people came and went in her life, she quickly forgot about me after high school graduation. I went abroad to study, and we lost contact. In the following 10 years, I slowly climbed my way to the public eye. I became a world-renowned pianist with assets worth millions and tickets for my performances in high demand. Many wealthy young women and top celebrities wanted to marry me, but I never expected to see Sophia's name among them. Over the years, she had already set her heart on someone needing to accept her parents' arranged marriage. When we met again, I saw in her eyes the same joy and satisfaction that I had once seen in my own. She had changed. She was thoughtful and considerate in front of me. When I agreed to give us a chance, she hugged me on the spot like a little girl who had just met her idol. But I didn't feel happy. Instead, I felt confused. I had finally gotten together with the girl I had secretly loved when I was young, but I slowly started to realize that I didn't like her anymore. I watched as Sophia gathered details of my past, big and small. I saw her surprise when she realized we had attended the same high school, and in that moment, I felt a bit of hatred for her. I watched her fall, consumed by thoughts of me, with her heart and eyes only on me. I secretly vowed that as long as she was loyal to me, I wouldn't mind playing the role of a partner and providing her with emotional support. But she never changed. Less than a year into our relationship, she started attracting attention from other men again, under the pretext of caring for my past. She tried to make up for it through Daniel. Now she had crossed my bottom line once, twice, and even more. I had to admit it. I no longer loved her. After Sophia left with Daniel, it seemed like she had found an excuse to be more open about her relationship with him to cheer Daniel up. Sophia even took him abroad for a trip. I wasn't interested in their relationship, but I couldn't ignore Daniel's subtle public displays of affection and provocation. He'd post something on his social media only to delete it less than half an hour later, something that only I could see. I watched them playing games on the beach, dressed in light clothing, or Sophia sitting in Daniel's arms, doing some crafts, watching private cinema, toasting with wine, camping in the same tent, and even selfies of Sophia in a bathrobe with Daniel holding her waist in front of a hotel's floor-to-ceiling window. "Ethan, just admit defeat," Daniel said arrogantly, a stark contrast to his previous submissive behavior around me. "Do you think your little act of playing hard to get is going to make Sophia change her mind? Don't be ridiculous. If you know what's good for you, just call off the engagement and leave Sophia's side. What good is your fame? Your disgraceful past means you don't deserve someone like Sophia. Her heart and body are already mine. She'll be much happier with me than she ever could with you. I'll prove through my actions that Sophia made the right choice, and one day I'll surpass you and trample you underfoot." Daniel's childish behavior only made him more laughable. He thought every move I made was to win Sophia back. So he thought by saying all this, he could push me away, but they didn't know. I didn't care anymore. Not only was I not hurt, but I was also recording every one of his ugly remarks as evidence. When the DNA test results came in, I had my assistant compile the surveillance footage from the apartment entrance, Daniel's social media posts, and the phone recordings, then sent them to Sophia. I also handed the evidence to the media. In front of everyone, I decided to expel Daniel from my tutelage. At the same time, I broke off the engagement with Sophia as everyone speculated about what had happened. The media released the bombshell news. In an instant, Sophia and Daniel became the targets of public scorn. What exactly did you tell Ethan? Sophia instantly became the laughingstock of the circle. She couldn't reach me by phone, so she dragged Daniel out to confront him. Daniel's face turned pale, his voice filled with regret. I didn't expect him to release all of this, Ali. It's my fault. Sophia stared at him in shock. Are you just regretting leaving evidence of your own guilt? Did you really mean what you said to Ethan? Daniel urgently hugged Sophia. Sophia, you have to believe me. I just wanted him to give you up. You two were engaged, and if the engagement was called off because of you, it would ruin your reputation. So I wanted him to take all the blame so we could be together openly. Sophia, I can see that you love me, but... She didn't hesitate to push him away, slapping him hard across the face. What do you think you are? Do you even deserve my love? I've been good to you just for Ethan's sake. I never expected you to be an ungrateful, two-faced snake. Daniel held his face, his expression frozen in disbelief. No, that's impossible. If you don't love me, why did you treat me so well? Sophia sneered coldly, her gaze full of disdain. I only liked you because you reminded me of Ethan's situation back then, just a way to love him indirectly. I can't believe I was fooled by your innocent act, Daniel. You're a piece of trash. Daniel cried out, Sophia, I don't believe this. You treated me better than you treated Ethan. Before Sophia turned to leave, he lunged at her, grabbing her arm. Please give me a chance. I swear I'll be better than Ethan. Ollie, my reputation has been ruined by Ethan. I've changed for you. It's all for you. But the only response was Sophia's indifferent back as she walked away. Sophia's family had some influence and spent a lot of money on public relations, which barely managed to protect her reputation from significant damage. But Daniel wasn't as lucky. After being expelled, he was almost completely blacklisted from the industry. No one dared to work with him anymore. Sophia reclaimed everything she had given him, including the piano worth over $5 million. She also ordered for Daniel to be blacklisted within the industry. After all of this, Sophia relentlessly started pursuing me again. Ethan, I know I was wrong, and I understand why you're angry, she said, but I was really wronged. Everything you misunderstood, I can explain it all. The once pampered, proud young lady was now desperately chasing after my car, shouting, I swear on my life, nothing ever happened between me and Daniel. That condom and those photos, he deliberately set them up for you to see. He's just a poor guy. How could I possibly like him? Sophia's words snapped me back to reality. I almost let myself be fooled by her act. Sophia would never change. I waved my hand, signaling the driver to drive off. I let Sophia chase after the car, crying and shouting, until she finally fell to the ground, covered in dirt. After that day, Sophia seemed like a completely different person. She appeared before me with the same gentleness she had when we first met. Ethan, I truly like you, so I respect all your choices. The engagement has been called off, but that doesn't mean I've given up on you. I'll still try, like I did before, to rekindle your love for me. Please give me another chance to pursue you. Let's start over. Okay, I coldly advised her. Don't waste your time. I continued with my work, leaving Sophia behind. No matter what she did now, it wouldn't stir any love or hatred in me. I no longer cared about her. I followed my family's arrangements and went on blind dates with new women. Everyone was more outstanding than her, and they loved me more. I had no reason to look back. Several times, Sophia would book the same restaurant for my blind dates. She'd watch me chat and laugh with other girls, hoping to trigger some pity from me. But I would only give her a glance when she interrupted me. Seeing the impatience and disgust in my eyes, Sophia would wipe away her tears and leave quietly. Once outside, I could hear her sobbing uncontrollably, but the next day she would appear again. She would bring up our past relationships, trying to rekindle my feelings for her, but it was all in vain. One time, while I was on a date with another singer, the girl playfully asked my name. I patiently wrote it in her palm. At that moment, Sophia froze, staring at me. She cried again, from the look in her eyes. It seemed she remembered everything. When the singer looked at her in confusion and asked, "Why is that woman crying?" "Ethan, I'll go comfort her for a moment," she said. I was a bit worried, not knowing what Sophia would say to her. But by the time Sophia went to get a tissue, she disappeared. "How strange. Where did she go?" the singer said, not wanting her to get involved. I made an excuse. "She just left with a friend." The girl sighed in relief. "That's good." After that day, Sophia never came to see me again. I gradually forgot about her and started spending more time with the singer, Emma. She was young and initially didn't know anything about me. Our relationship was based purely on mutual interests, without anyone trying to use me, which I found refreshing. We quickly reached the point where we were discussing marriage. Our families were already picking an auspicious date. At this time, I heard some news about Sophia from my students. She had been emotionally manipulated by Daniel and, in a fit of rage, accidentally destroyed his hand. As a result, Daniel could no longer play the piano, losing the last hope of making a living. In his despair, he pushed Sophia down the stairs when she let her guard down, leaving Sophia in a coma with no sign of waking up. Sophia's family was powerful, and after Daniel was jailed, he would undoubtedly face a life worse than death. Before my wedding, Sophia's parents begged me to visit her once. "The doctors say she's lost all hope of survival. Please, Ethan, save our daughter." I watched the elderly couple kneel before me. As I contemplated, Emma held my arm. "Go," she said. "I'll wait for you to come back." After visiting Sophia once, her condition seemed to gradually improve. When Emma and I got married, Sophia showed up at the wedding. She didn't say anything, just quietly stayed until the ceremony ended. The next day, she left the country. She only left a note saying, "I'm sorry." I think at that point she finally let go, and I began a new chapter of my life with Emma.